Hello. Today I'm going to plant a plum tree. When do we want to plant our plum tree? Well, if you've got a bare rooted tree, which means it's not in a pot like this but just has bare roots, normally you want to plant it very quickly after you've bought it because the roots will dry out and kill the tree. And normally the time of the year to do that is from early autumn through to early spring. Now here, with trees that have a pot like mine, we have a little bit more flexibility about when we plant it. So you can plant it pretty much any time of the year. Now, one thing to remember, as with most planting, we need to avoid when the weather is extremely hot or extremely cold, particularly if the ground is either baked hard or frozen solid. So we know when we need to plant it. So how do we plant it? I've chosen my spot where I want my plum tree to grow. It's going to be in full sun here, and it's going to be planted in a place where it's far enough away from the house or any walls or anything else like that, such that the roots aren't going to interfere with any foundations. Always a good thing to keep in mind when planting trees. The other thing, it's not far away from another plum tree which will act as a pollinator for this tree. It's actually auto-fertile. It doesn't need to be pollinated to produce fruit, but most auto-fertile plants will actually produce more fruit if they are actually pollinated. So again, a little thing to keep in mind. The other thing about this position is it will provide shade for this camellia which is just growing behind. When I bought this house, the previous owners had planted this camellia, which unfortunately suffers rather badly in the summer because it gets very, very hot here. So this plum tree will actually provide a little bit of shade for its neighbour, which of course can be only a good thing for the camellia too. So let's get on with planting. So I've already dug here a really, really big hole. Normally the hole needs to be at least twice the size of the pot or the root ball that you have on your tree. So here, as we can see, this goes in very, very easily. So what I'm going to do is take off the pot, and I've made in my wheelbarrow a little mix of some rather good soil with some manure and some of the original soil from the hole, because unfortunately here where I live the soil is clay and it's really not too great for most things, and these plants need a certain amount of drainage in the soil and a certain amount of fertility. So as I said, I've made a big mix here, so I'm going to put the tree in the hole and then fill around it so it's got a nice snug fit in the hole with this rather good quality soil. So let's get to it. The planting is finished. And as you can see here, I've put the tree in the ground with the mixture I was talking about earlier, and I've put it in a little bit of a depression, like a little bowl here, because certainly in the first couple of years this plant will need quite a bit of watering so that it will settle in to its new environment, and when it rains, hopefully the rain will collect here and give it a really good watering to help it along its way. So a little depression there is always a good idea. Just a little word about the level that we plant the tree at. When we have it in a pot, it's easy because we just plant it such that the tree is coming out of the soil at exactly the same point it was in the pot. So the soil is built up around just to that level where it was coming out of the soil in the original pot. With bare rooted trees, you'll find that there's a root area and then the normal bark starts to show. As soon as you see this little transition point, that is what I call the collar, and that's where the soil should stop. So you fill it up with soil just up to that point, and where the bark is looking very much unroot-like and more like bark, that's where the soil should come, just up to that point, and then the rest is above the soil. So that's it. All we need to do now, whether it's bare rooted or in a pot, as we've seen, just need to give it a good watering. We need to do this even if it's rained, because what this does, apart from giving the plant something to drink, it will also close up a lot of the little, well, the bigger air holes that are found in the disturbed soil which is around the roots, so that the soil will basically glue itself to the roots and give the plant a good chance to get enough nutrition to start growing. Now the spring is coming soon and this plant will take off. It's also a good time to cut off little branches that you don't want to keep. So you can take out your secateurs and cut off these little things. I'm actually going to leave them because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use them as cuttings to produce more trees. So I bought one tree, but from this one tree I will actually have perhaps 3 or 4 trees to plant in the garden, which will be a lot smaller and younger, but certainly will add to my stock of plum trees in the garden. So now, over to you. Go out and plant a plum tree.